Ladies and gentlemen, grab your drinks and popcorn. Today's feature is about to begin. Welcome to Celluloid Codswallop.
Welcome to this week's Celluloid Codswallop. I am Gemma, and you weren't expecting to hear my voice, were you guys? No, you weren't, but we will tell you the reason why in a minute. I am also here with a wonderful co-host.
Hello, it's me.
James, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Gemma?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Yeah, like I said, it is a bit odd being a Celluloid Codswallop episode, but you know.
Well,
go on.
It's not the first. We had you on for The Lion King, and we've long discussed this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Our tadpoles won't know this, but Stafford has refused to review The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm assuming it's because it's too complicated for him, or it's not art house enough.
Or he just doesn't like good films, probably. That's probably more than likely.
Well, he's proved that so far during our episodes.
Yes.
So instead, we've decided to gather a special guest. Not
we
just Gemma.
have.
Because Gemma loves Lord of the Rings. I enjoy it myself.
Yeah.
Since we didn't want to include Stafford, we've rubbed the salt in the wound by getting an extra guest.
Yes, who I'm supposed to be introducing, but thank you, James.
Sorry.
It's all right, which I keep you on track, you. But anyway, we are joined by a wonderful guest this week. It's Sam from a podcast called Casserole, which is a podcast that I listen to on a weekly basis. And I also know for a fact that the friends that he has on this podcast, which I'm saying loosely because they won't allow him to actually review this film. So, yeah, we're going to allow Sam to join us to actually talk about Lord of the Rings. So, in the Fellowship of the Rings. Hello, Sam. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me. Yeah, really, really good. Yeah, they are. Yeah, friends is a loose term.
Yeah.
They're good. I think we probably will end up recasting at some point.
Yes,
things, but it is a big cast and it's difficult, you know. But yeah, I mean they're long suffering. They know that I talk a lot about my love for the Lord of the Rings, the books, the films, the Hobbit, everything. So yeah,
big fan and rightly so.
Yeah,
rightly so.
Yeah, we do love the films, and well, I've read The Hobbit. I haven't read the other books, but I've certainly read The Hobbit because it was one of my dad's favorite books, so I read that. But before we get into the film, because obviously that is all why we're here, I just wondered, Sam, if you could tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, thanks. So Casserole is well, it's it's a bunch of nonsense, really, but it's mostly about the three of us, my co-hosts Jim and Nick, and we each week or each fortnight really, we set out to change the cast of a famous film.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that is Jaws, or most recently we did Apocalypse Now, we've done Shawshank Redemption, Ghostbusters. We talk a little bit about the film, what we think about it, what worked, what maybe didn't work. It started out as a bit of a experiment, really, because Jim has watched, I think, probably 3 films in his life.
Oh, my goodness.
2 of those were Fast and the Furious. So we tried to sort of expand his horizons filmically.
Yep.
And yeah, that's it, really. We take a few of the key roles and we recast them. Sometimes there's a theme, like if the film was made nowadays. Sometimes it's, actors that maybe have sadly passed on, what they would be like. Or if we could time travel and bring actors back then that are around now. And it usually ends in some craziness from Jim, some interesting facts from Nick, and some gushing about the film from me, as I tend to be a bit too soft on films, I think. I tend to like most of them.
Oh, that's okay though. I think it's nice to have enjoyment, but at the same time, I do also think, and in the sense with like, I call him Stafford so that I don't have to keep saying James and confusing the other James, because it's like having him here, because I know he doesn't particularly like Lord of the Rings. It's kind of fun to have somebody who doesn't like a film.
Yeah, well, we tend to find that's Jim quite a lot of the time.
Yes.
His opinions on what 99.9% of the population would consider a classic film is like boring. It's just people sat around talking. And you're like,
Oh God, don't ever show him Citizen Kane.
oh man, I don't think he'd get it. He'd be waiting for Michael Caine to turn up the whole film.
He didn't even have a walking stick.
While we talk about Jim, actually, I have got a little message from him as well, because I did ask him if he had anything that he'd like to say, and he said that Rebel Moon is better than Lord of the Rings. So there we have it.
I mean, that just sums it up, doesn't it? Really,
it absolutely does. Yeah.
Dear Jim, I'm gonna fix you.
there's literally no point. There's no point in even trying to argue with him, because it's like he's from another planet.
He clearly is if he enjoys Rebel Moon.
Yeah. Have you seen the director's cuts?
No, I refuse to give him any sort of leeway after watching the Snyder Cut.
Well, yeah. So this is
like I've said, the only good film Zack Snyder has ever done is Watchmen, and it's because it's not his own idea.
Yeah. And 300.
It's because he's taken someone else. He's taken a very beloved graphic novel and did the best with it. And I think it just came out the wrong time. It's still a pretty solid film.
It's in my top 10. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, I think it looks fantastic. Because again, I've got the graphic novel.
Yeah.
The way he transported it from page to screen was as close as anyone's going to get. Like, it was pretty, he stuck to the plot points, and it's not awful. It was just out the wrong time.
Well, I'd go further. I would say the ending of the film is better than the ending of the graphic novel.
I get the point, but I would disagree in saying that. Like, I understand that, yeah, because it's a bit more nuanced in the.
It makes more sense as to why people would.
Yeah, it's a better unifier than.
Yeah.
So it's a better unifier than the ending in the novel. But
anyone that hasn't seen the film is now like, what are they talking about?
Well, go and watch it. It's at this
good.
point, 13-year-old film.
I've actually lost track as to what film we're talking about, if I'm honest, because I'm still going.
This is Watchmen.
Watchmen I've seen, yeah.
This was because Jim was like, Rebel Moon is better than Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Rebel Moon being made by the same man who made Watchmen, which is his sole good film.
Well, he also did 300, didn't he?
And?
Well, 300. You don't like 300?
Well, it's one of those it was very stylistic, and again, because he did Sin City as well, and I just feel like that was more of he was trying to promote the style more than the story. So it was more like an experiment in that. I mean, it's not an awful film. I won't turn it off if it comes on. But
I mean, that's the mark of a good film right there.
No, that's the mark of a film.
That's the mark of boredom.
That's the mark of, I need something in the background to block out the silence of loneliness.
Well, if it helps, I watched Sin City at the cinema, which is not easy to say with a lisp, and I actually fell asleep. So, but
Mickey Rourke will do that to most people.
Anyway, should we move on to the film that we're actually supposed to be talking about right now?
Definitely.
Go on then.
Yeah. So we are going to be talking about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So like the first film. Well, it depends what which way you look at it, sort of thing, because technically The Hobbit is the first film, but it was recorded after. But anyway, we're doing The Fellowship of the Ring. So, James, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, it's we were discussing the Fellowship of the Rings. Obviously, it was Peter Jackson's masterpiece.
Yes.
It was, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was released in 2000?
I think 2001, actually, but...
Yeah. It swept the awards when it came out. I remember, I think it was 16 Oscars.
Something crazy.
It was like every category: music, costume, best actor, best supporting role. It just wiped the board, and it is Peter Jackson's retelling of the J.R.R. Tolkien masterpiece that is The Fellowship of the Ring. I have nothing but good things to say about this film. I absolutely adore it.
Okay, well, we've been talking enough celluloid Codswallop.
Oh, stop it. You give me my hour of gushing. Quiet you. But no, it's set in a fantasy land where a young I say a young man. He's 60 in the books, but young for his species. A young man is tasked to throw an evil piece of jewelry back into the fires from whence it came. Yeah, with the help of
the Fellowship.
Yeah, the Fellowship of the Ring, made up of a wizard, a dwarf, an elf, 2 humans, and three other of his mates.
Yeah, so 4 hobbits. Yeah,
which sounds like the set up to a bad joke.
It really does.
4 hobbits, a dwarf, a wizard, an elf, and 2 men walk into a bar.
They all say "ow."
No, they. Turns out they were in the wrong one because the Nazgul were attacking the other one, so they were in the right bar. But anyway, but yeah, it's the story of Frodo Baggins, how he finds out that his uncle, if I remember correctly, Bilbo, is celebrating his 111th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
His 11th birthday, and he discovers that he wants to go on one last adventure, so he performs a party trick, which is to disappear in front of everyone. This upsets his very old friend Gandalf, who goes, there are many magic rings in the world, and not many can do that. So Gandalf goes away and actually does some research. Now, in the books, that's 20 years, is it, Sam?
I think it's 17, but it's a while.
It's portrayed in the books like he's only away for in the films like he's only away a couple of months.
Yeah.
Because he comes back, Bilbo gives up the ring before he goes on his last adventure because he wants to see the elves of Rivendell. But Gandalf makes him give it up. Gandalf has discovered that the ring was actually belonged to the Dark Lord Sauron, who has tried to take over Middle-earth during the Second Age. Was that right, Sam?
Yeah.
Yep.
I like how you're not asking me. I mean, I watched the film too, guys.
Yeah, but the point... I know, Jen. I'll ask you about the pretty things.
Thank you.
I'll ask you, like, what wasn't Cate Blanchett lovely? she looked lovely in that dress, and Liv Tyler's gorgeous. But at this point,
can I not comment on the men as well? Because I do quite like the men.
Absolutely. Why?
Thank you.
We shall retitle the episode "Why We All Love Sean Bean."
Yes.
Oh, he is awesome.
Yeah,
he is absolutely fantastic. As a man who has the Sharp box set, courtesy of my wife, sat at my feet.
Yeah, I actually have the Sharp box set sat at my feet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there.
Sam is a bit more professional because he decided not to go off mic just to show us something that we can't see on the podcast.
If one of us didn't go off mic, it wouldn't be a Codswallop.
No, exactly. I just logged them.
Anyway, so Gandalf has discovered the ring belongs to Sauron. It cannot remain in Hobbiton. So he takes Frodo along with his gardener, Samwise Gamgee, and his... Are they cousins, Merry and Pippin, to Frodo?
Merry is his cousin. Pippin is his like cousin once removed. They are distant relations, but in Hobbit society, they're all very close.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Gemma's neck of the woods.
Well, we're talking to someone from Bristol, so
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if Weymouth is much different to Bristol, to be honest.
I am not. I'm nowhere near Weymouth. Thank you very much.
And I'm nowhere near Bristol. Thank you very much.
This lesson in geography was brought to you by Talking Codswallop.
Yes.
So yeah, it is obviously the first. It's the first of the trilogy. This is the beginning of the adventure. We meet all the key players. They're all introduced. We've got Aragorn, who is played fantastically by Viggo Mortensen, who nearly wasn't. In fact, they started principal recording, and the original actor refused to do any of the training. He refused to do any of the sword fighting, refused to do any of the horse riding. I cannot remember his name, but I remember Peter Jackson
I'm about
this
to look it
not
up for you.
working, and brought in Viggo. They had to do reshoots for like essentially 1/3 of the film. I think it was quite a substantial recast.
Stuart Townsend was
That's
the
the
original
one.
actor.
Yeah.
Who instead went on to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So,
which was Sean Connery's last film. It bombed so
yes,
hard.
it was so bad. Sean Connery quit.
Yeah. He retired and gave up.
Yeah, don't blame him.
But so as I say, it's a fantastic film. It sends you through the full emotional roller coaster. You know, it's Frodo's never left his village, as it were, of Hobbiton, and now he's trekking thousands of miles to basically save everyone.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful story. The characters that were introduced, I think Hugo Weaving makes an amazing Elrond, who is the head of the elves is the best way to describe it. Well, he's head of the elves in Rivendell, not the wood elves, because they're different breeds.
To you guys, though, can I ask, did the elves come across as being a bit arrogant?
They were always supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so, because it was like, when they were saying, oh, well, he's a troll or whatever, and he lives in a hole, not in a hole, but, and, and then you've got such and such over here, and then you've got stupid humans over here.
It's very much elves, because they live for so long, they have lifespans of thousands of years. So to them, humans are like pets. Know the old joke of Han Solo and Chewbacca. It's like Han is Chewie's owner.
Yeah.
He's for every 7 human years, it's every 7 year elf years, it's 1 human year. So
yeah.
They do have that air of arrogance about them because they've been around for so long, despite them having the same history as humans in way of conflict. The fact that humans are still in conflict, it makes the elves like, oh, well, we're better than you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But it's also the fact of the elves are coming. They have. Is it a prophecy, Sam, or is it just that they can sense that it's coming to their time on this earth is coming to an end?
Yeah, it's they sort of know that their time has passed, and they are reluctantly having to give up sort of stewardship of Middle Earth to humans, as they're the only really race that can kind of take it on. As they say, that the dwarves are sort of too selfish and, only care about wealth and money and, mining for gold. So humans are where sort of the future is, but it's kind of a reluctance because, as you say, we're a young race to them, and we make a lot of mistakes. I mean, for those of us that have children, 6-year-olds can sometimes get on your nerves with the mistakes they make, and they're very pig-headed and they want to do things their way, but you're like, if you touch that, you're going to burn your hand. And I think that just keeps happening time again to the elves.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the way that it's set up. As I say, the first defeat of Sauron at the Second Age, the leader of the men is tasked to destroy the ring. This is one of the fantastic grand openings and this gorgeous set piece of a fight. And then it leads on to Elrond trying to encourage this person to destroy the ring because they're at Isildur at Mount Doom, and he refuses because the power within the ring, it corrupts men, and very few can withstand its power.
Yeah,
and its want.
Yes, which is that's a whole character arc for Boromir, which is. Again, I think beautifully played by the sexy man from Yorkshire.
Well, they needed a character. They needed someone to play the only character pretty much that dies. You have to get Sean Bean.
How dare you?
Yeah. He does die a lot, doesn't he? He does die a lot in films and stuff.
That's to make up for his lack of death in Sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
He dies in everything else so that he can live on as Sharp.
He almost dies in almost every episode of Sharp.
Yes, but he never does.
Yeah.
And that's where he's going to make up for it.
He does die well.
the fact that it's based on a book where the language of the world was the first thing created. Basically, Tolkien wanted his own language to tell his wife how much he loved him, and ended up with a just an absolutely iconic fantasy world that is still relevant today. It's still looked upon as, an icon. It's beloved by so many people because he poured his heart and soul into this, and you can see it in the characters, the relationships. I mean, the love story between Aragorn and Eowyn. Not Eowyn.
Yeah. The elf.
Sam, help me out.
Yeah, sorry. Aragorn and oh my god, I'm blanking. You
Okay,
said
let Gemma
Eowyn now,
Google.
and it's not. It's
Yes,
Arwen.
Gemma.
Arwen.
Yes.
Arwen.
Now, if I
Live
remember,
tight.
That's my car's name.
which one? The one that works or the one that doesn't?
Yeah.
You'll be calling him. You'll be calling it Gollum by the end of the week.
Yeah.
No, that's the old one.
Yeah, that one's gone. That one's gone. It's fine.
Now, again, it's been a while since I read the books. I'm pretty sure Arwen, she wasn't featured as heavily in the books.
She's not a character in the books. He is in love with an elf, but it's not. It's already talked about. Arwen's not a character.
Yeah. So, but again, because that's one of the few things you'll find about Lord of the Rings fans. Despite the slight changes in the movie, it's still liked by people who read the books first.
Yeah, I mean, I read the books first, and I actually I first got into it when I was really young through the BBC radio play.
Yes.
Which, I listened to sort of just basically on repeat for about 4 years of my life. That was like a brilliant way into it, and then read the books several times. But I have met some people that are big fans of the book that don't like the films, but they're just not real fans, in my opinion.
I think also for the most part as well that they did keep it quite close to the books, didn't they? So that
as much as they could, yeah.
Because obviously it's huge books and huge films. They're each about 2 hours long, aren't they? So
even when you look at the extended editions, the director's cut, they're 4.5 hours long each.
I mean, I didn't watch the director's cut. I watched the 2 hour version.
Do.
Yeah.
I only just watched them, only just, but within the last 12 months, was able to watch the extended cuts all the way through. And apart from a few shaky CGI moments, like the extended scenes in Rivendell, Sam, don't know about you, but it gives what I call prequels vibes, where everything was green screen.
Yeah, so I mean,
kind of weird, slight separation of actor and set.
I'm not trying to do a weird kind of flex or anything, but it's been years since I've watched anything other than the extended ones. I think, when they first came out on DVD, you could only get the normal versions. And so I bought them all on normal.
The theatrical release,
wasn't the theatrical release. And then as soon as they released the extended ones, I just watched the extended ones from then on.
I think that was when it hit Blu-ray, because I think that was one of the big things, was because Blu-ray was such a better format. Peter Jackson was like, great, I can put 2 hours of content back in.
I will say, actually, and then this is one of the things I often defend the Hobbit films, because I think they're still very good films, and I think a lot of people don't think they're that good because they're comparing them to Lord of the Rings, but that is like comparing the Mona Lisa to any other artwork. It's still very good artwork. It's, if the Lord of the Rings films weren't out, the Hobbit films would be the greatest, fantasy films we have. So it's just because the Lord of the Rings is so good. And I think I can see your face, James. I can see your face. But the extended versions of the Hobbits are far superior.
I know you're right, but for me to utter the words just feels wrong. Because I can't imagine a world without Peter Jackson's Lord.
Just imagine,
that's the point.
Imagine it.
I'm trying, but my brain's just like, no, they exist. They're perfect. Yeah. Leave them alone. Stop it.
But the extended Hobbit films are, I would say, the only way to view the Hobbit films, because they add so much in and they fix a lot of the issues with the CGI because they have more time to go back in and improve it. So
that's good then. Yeah, I have to do that then.
Track them down, because I do have to admit, the Hobbit, whilst I enjoyed it, it was a little less impactful than watching I remember being blown away watching the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Like watching The Lord of the Rings, I remember being blown away and like, this is the best thing ever. The second film cannot come out soon enough.
Yeah.
I went straight home after watching the first one and reread The Two Towers because I was that excited for it.
Yeah, I think also as well is because it was so different of its time as well. You know, when it came out, there was sort of nothing. Pretty much, there was nothing like it. So also that made a massive impact as well to audiences all over the way. You know, all over the world.
Well, the last kind of big film that was like this was Titanic. Big epics. It was Titanic, and that was a semi-historical.
Well, if you're talking about high fantasy, there was nothing. You had films in the 80s like Willow and Princess Bride, which I love, but there was nothing until The Lord of the Rings came out that made fantasy cool or bankable for Hollywood.
It's like you have to accept that Conan the Barbarian and Lord of the Rings are technically the same kind of film in that they are high fantasy, but as you say, they both have very different impacts on society.
Yeah.
Also, it was an opportunity for like the nerd flag to fly, you know, kind of thing as well with Lord of the Rings. So again, it's another thing that was kind of, you know, it was way before like the MCU and stuff like that, you know, that it gave people opportunity. And it's like my dad was a massive fan of Lord of the Rings. And I think also that's still why it holds such a big part in my life, because it was so important to him. But it's like, but he didn't go into it as the, you know, oh God, I think it's going to be like the best film ever. But, you know, he wanted to sit down and at the cinema and watch every single of the films, you know. I think we all managed to do it as well. And it was nice because I was able to join them at the cinema as well because it wasn't too scary. But, you know, I'm trying to think how old I was. When did we establish it came out in
2001?
Fellowship.
Oh, okay. So I was about 16 at the time. So that's fine. I was heavily into heavy metal at that point. So nothing scared me.
I was 12.
Okay, all right, James. We're not in a competition.
I was 12 too.
All right, guys. Shut up. Don't talk about the old bird if she's not here. No, it's all good. I'm teasing.
In regards to scariness, it was I was so much happier with the fact that it was like genuine fear, not jump scare.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Like this scary elements that were in it were, you know, fears of the unknown, fears of death, fears of darkness. You know, and again, it's all the plot points and storylines that we don't have anymore as well. Yes, it is a simple plot in the sense of man takes piece of jewelry back to maker and complains, but but it's the way that they approach it. The fact that, like, the way that Aragorn's character is revealed to begin with, he's just noted as a simple ranger, which is just like a wildsman. And he escorts the hobbits to Rivendell, and then at Rivendell, it's discovered that he is an ageless freak who is technically the heir of Gondor.
Yeah,
which leads to, you know, and then you've got the clash of Boromir, who is the son of the steward of Gondor, who is desperately trying to save his people by getting involved because he wants to keep the ring with the intention of saving his people.
Yeah. But it never brings anything good, does it, that ring?
No. And he's one of the few people who, whilst initially he falls under its spell, because he attacks Frodo in the woods to try... He actually breaks down and cries because he realizes that what I want is not worth the suffering of an innocent.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because there was a bit before, I can't remember if it was before or after, but when they were walking through the snow and it fell on the floor and he picked it up and he was sort of desperate to keep hold of it then as well. And can I also just add that Hobbit feet must be impressive, because walking through that thickness of snow and not getting frostbite, that's pretty cool.
I do have to admit, I was expecting more frostbite on those bits, or at least just more scenes of them warming their feet by the fire. But they are established as being a hearty race with, quite a surprising durability. But again, some of those set pieces, well, being real sets. The rolling hills of New Zealand for the Hobbiton, the mountains, the woods, the river, everything was real as well. So it just really added to it. And it's like, okay, yes, you can see where they've put the CGI big statues in, but you can clearly tell that at least they're on a river. Although, fun fact, in Return of the King, when Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli are edging their way along a mountainside to go see the Ghost Army, who they recruit for the Battle of Gondor, that is not halfway up a mountain. That's outside the airport at ground level. Apparently, it's just a rocky outcrop near the airport, and it's because my wife went on a tour of filming locations, and it's like, and here at the airport, this is where they filmed this scene. It's like it's just a bunch of rocks that are there.
Yeah. I think the landscape of New Zealand is like a character into itself, isn't it? It's so integral to the film. And really interestingly, when they were going to make the films, one of the places that was between New Zealand and the southwest of England, which is near where I live.
Okay.
That was one of the places they were going to film lots, but they said there were too many roads that they'd have to CGI out.
Yeah.
And so New Zealand had these vast tracts of like nothingness. But I mean, I live in the West Country. It's very nice, but it's not New Zealand.
No.
So.
I mean, again, Tolkien based it on British geography. Yeah. Again, it's what he knew. He was in the intelligence department during World War II. He based it on what he knew. But yeah, I completely agree. Again, you couldn't set it anywhere else. To have the vast environments being so different and yet right next door to one another. The mountain is in the background in New Zealand, despite being, you stand in the rolling hills, you can still see the mountain. And, it is perfect. And a fun fact I found out as well, because it was being filmed in New Zealand, a lot of the original casting choices were natives. So Lucy Lawless was originally going to be in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that would be good.
I only found that out recently, and she turned it down on the grounds that she felt like she couldn't fulfill the role. Because at the time, she was known for Xena.
Yeah.
And she was just worried that without the armour, she wouldn't be up to it.
I mean, she's iconic in that role, but she's not Oscar-winning actress.
No.
Not throw too much shade, but she's not quite the same level.
No. And also the other problem is that you get the viewer is always typecasting somebody. Like in your head, you watch, take the In-Betweeners, for example. If you saw one of the In-Betweeners on a different program or a film or whatever, quite often you think, oh, there's Will or whatever, rather than, who they're actually portraying that time.
Yeah, I've seen it. You see it all the time, like in Doctor Who. It's the role of a lifetime, but it's also it could be a real burden.
Yeah.
Any role like that. I mean, Daniel Radcliffe will always be Harry Potter.
Although, to be fair to Radders, he's doing well with the roles he's picking now. He's not doing Harry Potter-esque roles, and I think we're finding out that he actually is a very good actor. And hopefully, I don't think he'll be. Don't think he went off and did some stage stuff, and he will be forever remembered as Harry Potter. But I don't think it's sort of hamstrung him like maybe it has Rupert Grint or Emma Watson even.
Yeah. Although Rupert Grint has gone off to do quite a few different spy type films and stuff like that, and you do sort of, I think, I don't know. I think that he's quite.
Well, I think he's given up acting now. Actually, he's.
Oh, is he?
I think so. He did a few things, but I think he's given it up. But
he's an ice cream man now.
Yeah.
Nice.
He literally has an ice cream van that he gives out free ice cream out of.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But I always said, as I was going to say, it works for Daniel because Daniel has always said, I'm set for life with the Harry Potter franchise. Therefore, now I can take the risks.
Yeah.
Like, he'll always have Harry Potter to fall back on. Whereas I think the problem with Rupert Grint was he tried to divert too soon. Because do you remember Captain Thunderpants?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So it was a I think a British helmed film, and it was about a boy who farts his way to the moon. And
Yes.
Rupert Grint starred as the mad genius child scientist. But this was shortly after, I think, the first Harry Potter had come out. So I think it was poor timing. I think he should have done the same as what Daniel did, which was lay off, get this franchise out the way, and then find his footing. But again, like most child actors, they don't want to do it. I think that, like, you know, most, like, you look at who's the lad who played Anakin in episode
Hayden
1.
Christensen. Oh, but the young one.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone remembers his name.
Yeah.
No.
The young lad from Sixth Sense.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah. He took a huge break from acting.
Yeah.
Well, I think a problem with a lot of child actors, because you find this with Macaulay Culkin as well. Obviously, the fame goes to them and stuff, but I think one of them is one of the things that makes them so adorable as child actors. They then end up looking slightly odd as adults, like Haley Joel Osment and Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, they've.
Well, we're talking about the one that you're talking about now. Yeah, he's beyond slightly.
Bit strange looking though.
Speaking of child actors, I love the fact that at the end of the entire trilogy of Lord of the Rings, as that's what we are discussing. Sorry for the huge
diversion.
Sorry for the tangent. Right. But I love the fact that Rosie is played by
Sean Astin's daughter.
Sean Astin's wife.
Oh,
so it's his real wife and his real daughter at the end.
Yeah.
The family that he has is his actual family, which I do think is quite cute. I absolutely love these films.
No, I do too.
I'm coming from the grounds of I've started looking more into the way that films are made.
Mm-hmm.
I love the forced perspective. I love the effort that they went to try and make things look seamless.
Also, the fact that they made things look, like proportionally right as well. So, like the fact that Gandalf was up here, really tall, and Frodo was really short because obviously he's a hobbit. It's like how they did those sort of angles so that they actually got that correct.
But I have to ask Sam, since it's the name of your podcast, do you have any gripes with any of the casting?
Nope. This is one of the issues of I'm not sure we could do it on Casserole because I genuinely think the cast is perfect. And when I think about people that could have been in it, they almost had Sean Connery as Gandalf, and Sean Connery's fine in some of the things that Sean Connery does, but "you shall not pass" is not something I want to be hearing ever. Yeah, I think the castings were perfect, and they went with not everyone but relatively unknown people to stay away from that people thinking of them as other roles. So they have become those roles, and I think in a lot of instances the actors, some of them were fantastic, like Viggo Mortensen and Elijah Wood and Sean Astin and Ian McKellen, and some of this isn't being incredibly mean, but Orlando Bloom is not a great actor. He's been shown up in other films to not be amazing, but he was perfectly cast as a quiet, aloof, slightly cocky, beautiful elf. And I think other than that, he's kind of not great, because his best role since Lord of the Rings was when he came back in The Hobbit, because he still did Legolas well.
Yeah.
Despite the fact he's like, you shouldn't even be in this book.
Ouch, despite the fact he shouldn't even be in the book. Yeah. So no, I wouldn't recast anyone.
Because the only reason I asked is because I know that Christopher Lee knew J.R.R. Tolkien, and he said, if they ever make a film, you're my Gandalf. So Tolkien said that to Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee was all like, I may not have been Gandalf, but I know Tolkien would have been happy with me as Saruman.
Yeah, I think he was better at Saruman, to be honest.
I do too. I do too, because again, his Hammer horror history. You know, he's always played villains so well.
Scaramanga.
Scalamoose. Sorry.
I apologize.
Can you do the Fandando? Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening me.
Talking of Hammer horror.
Hammer horror for the ears.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he. I think. You know, Christopher Lee was fantastic, but I think he didn't have the same warmth that Ian McKellen had. You know, he wasn't, you know, everybody's lovable granddad. He was, you know, that scary one that lives next door to you and that you're slightly worried of, like, you know, like the one from Home Alone.
He wasn't the pipe weed smoking, firework bringing uncle. He wasn't. Uncle.
The thing about that film is, you pick a character and it is perfectly cast.
Mm-hmm.
From the one that was in, you know, from Gandalf, from, you know, the Fellowship of the Ring down to Faramir, Denethor, you know, the third Rohirrim from the left. You know, there isn't a miss.
No, I have to admit, I was very surprised that like Carl Urban does fantastic as Irma. Sorry, I can never say his name because it's like three vowels and it's like talking Welsh. You or your moron. But yeah, like the cast is absolutely eclectic when you look at it nowadays, because it's, as you said, these are people who you wouldn't think of if you were to try and cast it now. Like, no one would think, yeah, Carl Urban, he's the kind of man I want to have a blonde ponytail and ride a horse.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Andy Serkis does an amazing job with the motion capture and with the voice. But again, you wouldn't expect it of him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he didn't. I mean, he hadn't done it before this. I mean, he was a motion capture guy, but you know, he hadn't done that kind of. You know, he just did the voice one day, and you're like, struck gold. And I think this is the problem when, you know, I'm sure at some point they will remake it, and that will be a sad day. But if they were really going to do it, I worry that they would do something like they did with the Avengers and have like a star-studded cast, and that misses the point. Like, none of the actors were bigger than the project, and that's what made it so great. And I think that's another.
I was going to say, except for John Rhys Davies, who's just fantastic.
I mean, he's
the 6'2" dwarf.
Well, but what's brilliant about that is they said that they only had to do 2 scales because John Rhys Davies was that much bigger than the Hobbits, that it worked just with 2 scales, not 3. And I was like, that's so brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
I do think actually that's another point. I'm sorry, I'm flying the flag for a film.
No, it's okay.
One of the good things about The Hobbit is the casting. Like some of the dwarves kind of, because there's so many of them and they're quite similar, but the casting, you know, Thorin Oakenshield, Richard Armitage is amazing. He's brilliant. And yeah, I think the casting in that's also good. Lee Pace as, like, you know, Thranduil. That's good. I see your face. No one else can see your face.
I have a feeling that James is going to counteract this a moment, so...
I can't stand Martin Freeman.
Really? Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just feel like I have the same problem with Harrison Ford.
Okay. Well, he mumbles, so I get that.
Well, no. The problem I have with Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford wasn't an actor. He was a carpenter who stumbled into acting. I get the feeling that Martin Freeman is very similar in that he always seems to give the air of, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, but that works for Bilbo.
It does. Well, it works for Bilbo initially, but it's more the, you know, it's just hard to like a character when it feels like in every other media that he's portrayed, like in interviews and stuff like that, and like there's the joke of him behind the scenes constantly giving everyone the finger.
Yeah, I mean,
and it does. You know, it's like out of context because that's what you got to remember. Is I'm not on set with him. I'm just watching this footage. It makes me feel like he doesn't want to be there, and it does affect things slightly. But again, who else are you going to cast? He does a fantastic job. I just personally don't like him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised by James Nesbitt.
Yeah, he's good.
But he pulled it out. He pulled it out the bag. You know, Stephen Fry being the mayor at the end is absolutely fantastic. Who's the knockoff Orlando Bloom? The fish.
Bard. That's Owen. No, not Owen. Hang on. Just look that up quickly.
Don't worry, I'll read it.
He's also in. He also plays Gaston in Luke Evans. That's it, Luke Evans. He plays Gaston in the live-action Beauty and the Beast. He's very good.
No, yeah, we've already established that we don't want to watch that film because that creeps the hell out of us, and the fact that a cute little cup called Chip then it's got live-action face. Anyway, we're not talking about that film.
No.
Let's go back to the Fellowship of the Rings.
We love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Is there any scenes though that you don't like? Because I've got one in particular that I don't particularly like.
We're just talking about the Fellowship, are we?
Just the Fellowship, yeah, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about. But I've got one which it's not like a scene as such, but it's a part of a scene, which is when Frodo has got the elf chain on and he gets stabbed.
Yes.
Yeah, but he gets stabbed and he causes it just kind of irritates me a little bit, this scene, because he goes oh, and he's like screaming and everything. Everyone's panicking because they want to protect him, but he's fine. And it's like, well, why did he cause all that fuss when he didn't actually get stabbed? And it's like, okay, yeah, it was a scary situation, but that kind of annoyed me a little bit because it's like, you know, they're trying to.
Can I say something? Can I say something that might solve this scene for you?
Okay,
so
go on.
If you've ever spoken to people or have seen things about people that get shot with Kevlar vests on, they say it's still incredibly painful and knocks the wind out of you and can make you pass out. So imagine having a cave troll stab you, and although it doesn't pierce you, it still, properly knocks you out, wins you, bruises you, breaks ribs. It just doesn't pierce you, but it still would hurt a lot.
Okay, well, in that case, then I can now understand that scene of that film. So yeah, no problem.
There you are.
Yeah,
see,
thank you
film.
for that.
No,
yeah, really.
You've also got to remember as well, with that scene in particular, it's a cave troll, so it's not like it's a person stabbing another person. It is a beast with the strength of 20 men stabbing someone who's a
child,
essentially.
Yes. A 4 foot high person.
It would be like me drop kicking a toddler.
Yeah.
And even if you put them in all the padding, it's still gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Can we set that up? Because I'd pay to see that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
The way he reacted, I felt, was actually quite ideal because they also make the point of light as a feather. He probably forgot he was wearing his own armor.
Maybe, yeah.
Because it's a big plot point, is the idea that mithril is such a unique material that to have this vest of it, the minute you put it on, after about an hour, you probably wouldn't even remember that it's on. So to then be stabbed by a cave troll's trident and pinned to the wall, because again, you've got to remember he gets properly shoved to the wall, and we see Sam with his pan fu, which is fantastic.
And I was going to say the other thing as well is that I can't remember the character's name, but Orlando Bloom, and he's firing off his arrows. Yeah, I'm very visual. Firing off his arrows. And the logic of me does kick in and go, well, where's he going to get more arrows from? I know it's a film, but the logic in me does go, what the fuck is he going to get more arrows from? Is he going to go round and pick them all up?
He does.
Well, he does do it.
They actually
never see it.
No, they go to that effort at the end, in the final fight of Fellowship. So this is when they get split up. This is where the introduction of the Uruk-hai. It's the first time we see them. They fight at the ruins. You actually see Legolas collecting his own arrows again. And later on in the second film, you see that he also has 2 short swords behind him as well, which he utilises more.
Which I actually have on my wall.
Yes, I did notice those. I just saw the tip of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
ladies and gentlemen,
for real.
we're about to see a man wave his knives at us.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, something you cannot see, but we can see. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, they are very cool.
Yeah,
The white
very
knives
cool.
of Legolas. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're,
I just
So-
realised as well, we were talking to you saying very cool, and then you didn't have your
I
headphones
couldn't
on,
hear
so you
the-
couldn't
I
hear
just
us.
assumed you were saying that. That's.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ah. But
And
no,
they're actually like they're not. They're classed as daggers, but they're.
it's like machetes.
Yeah.
Are they actually
not.
sharp, or are they just like made of plastic or what?
No, they're not. They're not plastic. They are.
Yeah.
They're pretty sharp.
Okay. Well, we won't give that your address to the police then.
Well, it's more a case of no one's robbing him.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I have an actual sword behind me as well, but it's not a movie replica. It's just a medieval
Yeah.
hand and a half sword,
Oh,
And
nice.
a daft.
Yeah.
or bastard sword, as it's called.
Ah.
But yeah, no, he does collect his arrows, and you actually see him using the arrows, stabbing them through people's necks, so he doesn't have to fire them and things.
Yeah,
like that.
he again. I say my weakest scene is in the mines. I feel like they could have made it a little more claustrophobic. I think that would have helped
Yeah.
because they almost like. I get the point of the mines are supposed to be big and open at the beginning because it's in the story. No one knows that the mines have been abandoned.
Yeah.
And that everyone is dead. Because Gimli says these, it should be, there'll be the warmest reception, the finest ales, food for mile, that kind of thing. And then when he gets in and you realise that no, because
It's
the
a
goblins,
graveyard.
because the cave, the goblins have taken over.
Interestingly enough, they don't do this in the film, but Aragorn does actually know in the book. Did you guys know that there's a new film coming out called The Hunt for Gollum?
No.
So there's a new film going to be coming out, I think, in a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years, and it's called The Hunt for Gollum, and it takes place between Frodo finding the ring and then Gandalf coming back and telling him that the ring. So that's 17-year period.
The research years, yeah.
And it's something that happens with Gandalf meets up with Aragorn, learns of the ring, learns that this creature Gollum has it, and Aragorn goes on a journey to try and find and track down Gollum.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, he actually passes through the mines of Moria and knows that it's dead and stuff. And in the books, he does say to Gandalf, we shouldn't go through the mines. I've been through the mines and I barely made it out. But in the films, that's not really set. But yeah, so...
It is kind of addressed. Though, but it's not as open as it is in the book.
It's just all something's there.
Well,
Yeah.
because
And it's... Sorry.
if I remember correctly, Aragorn recommends the mountain pass.
Yeah.
Says it's more treacherous, but he leads them that way because he knows the mines are just as dangerous. There is no safe way.
Yeah.
So that's why he takes the mountain pass first, and that's when he realizes, the foul voice on the wind.
Yeah.
It's like, look, at this point, I'd take the mines.
Yeah. And it's also... Gandalf is cautious about taking the mines as well for various other reasons as well, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
but they've awoken something.
But yeah, I think
Dragon... dragon beast thing.
it's
Yeah.
not a dragon.
Dragon beast thing.
It's a
Fiery
Balrog.
thing. Okay. Fiery... Wah! Thing.
Actually, that's the point. Sam, quick question. Balrog, wing or no wings?
Well, there were many Balrogs in the first age, and some
Stop
had wings and
coughing
some
out.
didn't.
Wings or no wings? It's a simple answer. One of the other.
Wings.
Yeah. I have to admit, I prefer the winged version because it adds to the grandness, like just having them unfurl.
Yeah, it's
It adds to the reveal. I think it does. It just add a sense of size to it rather than just a hulking great creature.
I think it does make the sort of slight plot hole of if he has wings, why is he falling?
Yeah.
but they could just be intimidation.
Well, I
Yeah.
always thought that with them being on fire, he's burned through the skin that would have been between the limbs of the wing. Therefore, the frame is still there, but that's essentially all it is frame. It's framework. It's not functional wings.
Do you know what? That answers it for me. No longer a plot hole. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, like, I don't think there's any scenes that I don't like. I think probably, for me, maybe the weakest scene are the ones in Lothlorien after Gandalf falls. They're okay, but the only thing that when you get extended scenes with a lot of elves talking, you do suddenly realise that they're sort of very breathy and talking very slowly, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it, but
Speed up a bit, yeah.
it doesn't
It's a
have the
pace
same for
ruiner.
me. And actually,
Yeah.
the only CGI that I don't really like is when Galadriel turns into that sort of blue shiny version. That's a bit of a miss, but
And instead of a Dark Lord, there will be a Queen.
Yeah.
yeah.
It is heartbreaking, though, isn't it, when you see Gandalf die, air
Yeah.
quotes, because we haven't moved on to the other films yet.
XP thief, as we call him.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, you fly, you fools! I get all the XP. I come back as a new character. Ah!
But we don't know that yet. So if anybody's watching listening to this episode, and you
Spoilers.
haven't watched all of the other films, I'm ever so sorry, because these two have actually given you lots of spoilers about many other films. than
To
just
be
this
fair,
one.
if you're at this point and you haven't seen the Lord of the Rings films, get out. I've got no time for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, Sam. Okay, you say that on your own podcast. Don't say it on this one.
Fine, I'll
You
say it. I'll say it. Apologies for the spoilers on a 20-odd-year-old film and at least 60-year-old book. No, at that point, it's nearly 100 years since it first came out. It was the
Yeah.
1930s when it came. Well, The Hobbit was 37, if I remember correctly.
And also, can I just say that apologies for the spoiler alert almost at the end of the episode.
Ouch. The tadpoles know this by now. We are awful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
probably
Sam,
say-
go on.
I was just going to say, we've done worse scene. What's everyone's favourite scene?
Yeah. Well, no, I was just gonna say that to explain to Sam as well that our listener base are called the Salty Tadpoles. Just so you know.
I've listened to a few episodes, yes, and I've
thank
picked up
you.
on it. Yes, very good.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Thank you for your ears. So, what was your question there, James?
Favourite scene? We've done ones that we've got the niggles with, and I'm going to start because this one always makes me laugh. It's Boromir teaching Merry and Pippin how to fight.
Oh, yeah, that's so cute.
That is a good one.
Because it's such a wholesome moment. It's like, yes, you've got the weight of the world on the shoulder. They've just set off from Rivendell. They've all agreed that this is going to be a long and hard journey, and that there are perils along the way. So Boromir goes out of his way to teach them how to fight, and it's just it's just pure joy, especially when the hobbits jump him, kick him in the shin, jump on his back, and take him to the floor. And it's good when even like Aragorn gives a little smile and a giggle, and Gimli's cheering them on like,
and then it soon gets ruined, doesn't it, by those evil black things?
Well, it's Saruman's birds.
Prebane.
Yeah,
I would say that is one of my low key favorite scenes. But I would say probably my favorite scene is when they're attacked in the what's the word I'm looking for? In the burial chamber by the goblins and the trolls. Because we've seen the sort of the epic battle in the prologue, and the Fellowship have come together, but this is the first time in the whole of the franchise that we properly see sort of these epic heroes fighting hordes of goblins and a mountain troll. And I think anyone that played computer games, anyone that grew up with fantasy films and stuff, I think that scene when it was over and that troll does and kind of falls down, you were like,
nice sound effect.
I've just witnessed what fantasy fighting can be like on film, and from that point on, there was no going back. That was the point where you're like, yeah, this film's going to be great. This franchise is going to be great. Cinema is going to be better from now on.
And again, I have to admit, you can see the heavy influence that, as you said, those kind of sword fight and the sword play became after the films came out. Like, sword fighting before was much more fencing orientated, kind of, slightly slower but in pace, but it wasn't quite lightsabers, but it definitely wasn't what we got here, whereas there was more verticality brought into it. The use of other weapons as well, like when Lurtz throws the knife at Aragorn, those kind of things we weren't used to seeing, like the idea of just being like moving with this situation.
Yeah,
I got stabbed. Free weapon.
And I think that's it, because, like you say, up until then we had, swashbuckling films with pirates and things, or you had, I've got a giant sword like Conan and I'll chop you in the midsection and you'll fall down onto a crash mat. But, then you had, art.
Yeah.
Again, short of, I would say, like Eastern cinema, we hadn't seen any kind of finesse like that.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching, again, I wouldn't call it quite fantasy, but like pseudo history, Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah.
Again, Orlando Bloom's in that, and you can see the influence with the sword fighting.
Yeah.
The sword fighting is much more visceral. And I think if it weren't for Lord of the Rings, we wouldn't have gotten those kind of films afterwards.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'd say as well that with regards to like my favourite scene, that it was sort of a toss up. As you guys were talking, I was sort of thinking like, it's kind of I've actually got two, so I'm going to go with two. The very start, so when they're in Hobbiton, because it's all so bright and cheerful and lovey-dovey, and you kind of think to yourself, oh, this is going to be a lovely film. You're like singing and dancing along, sort of thing, and it's completely the opposite throughout the rest of the film. So it kind of like opens up in such a colourful, wonderful world, and then everything goes dark from there onwards when unless they're with the elves or whatever. But the other scene that I was thinking of was actually when Sean Bean's character actually dies, because the fact that even though he has arrows in him, he still gets up and he still fights, and it shows that he had got the potential to be a true king. Do you know what I mean? That he was going to fight to the death to protect those that he needed to protect. So yeah, I really like those two scenes.
Yeah, I agree. They're excellent.
Again, I think you can't fault them, and one of the biggest things is the soundtrack. The theme for Hobbiton just fills you with joy every time you hear it, because it's so light and airy. And as you say, you've got all those young happy children running through the grass. When Gandalf carts is going past and like, Gandalf, oh, yay!
Yeah, complete oblivion.
It's so much like tone setting is perfect.
Yeah,
because it's, as you say, this is peace. So you understand immediately. Oh, this is nice, happy, warm feelings. Mm-hmm. You realise what they're giving up. You realise their sacrifice.
Yeah.
And you realise what they're fighting for, all in the space of a 5-10 minute intro.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, visually stunning, but also the soundtrack is superb.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
agreed.
Another one that will go down in history. Again, that the soundtrack is iconic. Immediately when you hear it, you've got all the right emotions that you need for the scene. Like I remember, like the tearing down of the trees in Isengard, Isengard.
Yeah,
and you hear that kind of industrial dum dum dum. It's like it's really guttural.
Yeah, And then you got the shit babies coming out of their little shit bubbles, haven't you?
Yes, the birthing of the Urukai.
Yeah, it was definitely looks like they were coming out of shit. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, again, they are born of the earth, so it is meant to be like they are not supposed they are from the darkest depths.
Yeah,
they are not meant for this world.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think it's absolutely fab. I really hope, like you said, Sam, I really hope they don't remake it. Like,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure they will.
Unfortunately, I think it will get that treatment, but I really hope they hold off for as long as they can.
Yeah,
because
it's almost. Sorry, go on.
No,
Sorry,
no.
I keep doing it now as well. It's
No, it's...
yeah. I'm trying to get a word in, guys. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I've been managing to keep my own, but it's almost like they need to have the like clause that Back to the Future guys put onto their films that they can never be redone, other than stage performance, which I think sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. I've not actually seen it, but I'd love to. I love Back to the Future. Go on.
I was going to say I love Back to the Future too, and I do. It's that you're right in that thing of I wish Chris Tolkien hadn't sold the rights and kept them, so that he could have at least had some form of like quality control.
Well, he didn't like the films, so we probably wouldn't have done that well if he'd kept the rights. That's probably why he sold them. Yeah. He didn't like.
That's actually a good point.
I know, I agree with that, because again, it's a lot of it was very much his dad's vision. So I think he would have been.
This is I think often one of the things you get with like people that are fans of the books and not fans of the films. If you're not a fan of the film, that's fine. You've got your books. Don't watch the films. Enjoy the books. Lovely, but you accept that the films are going to be made and that millions of people like them. And I think if you sat there and thought, well, okay, if a film is going to be made, could it really have been made better than this? No, it couldn't. This is literally the best adaptation of a book that there is and ever has been.
Yes.
Be thankful it wasn't worse.
It could have been a lot worse. I mean, prime example, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, as a film, is superb. As a book, is amazing. You compare the two,
they're completely different. Yeah,
and they are. It's like they just ripped the front cover off, slapped it on a DVD.
Yeah,
because they are so different. Like Hammond is evil. He's not your happy jolly grandpa who, instead of making fried chicken, went for dinosaurs. Because he does look a little bit like Colonel Sanders.
He does. He
does look a little bit like Colonel Sanders in the film.
Did at least in the book somebody get eaten on the toilet, though? Because if not, the film's way better. Okay.
No. The actual failing of the park, but he's portrayed as a kind of what's the word? Like when he sat at the table with the lawyer, and in the film he's like, no, we're not going to make it $20,000 to come here. These dinosaurs are for everyone. The park will be affordable. In the book, he's more than happy to weaponize these damn things. He's talking about military contracts. He's happy to kill people over it and see people killed, because it's just like, I need to protect my investment.
Yeah.
But as I said, as we've all said, you compare Lord of the Rings. Yes, okay, there are some things that yes, you can go, oh, well, it's supposed to be 17 years, but it's actually 3, it looks like it's only 2 days. I get that. I've got 2 hours to tell a story.
Yeah.
You've got to make some, you've got to make some grievances. At least they didn't do a bloody jump cut where it just came up on the screen 17 years later. Dun, 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 dun. Frodo!
Yeah.
I've been reading for 17 years straight. Open the door.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
There are, that's the thing of, as you said, Sam, and you worded it perfectly. It could have been so much worse. Much worse, and I am grateful that we got what we did.
Yeah.
I mean, saying it could have been worse is a disservice, I think, because it that makes it sound like it's bad. It couldn't have been better. Is a better way of saying it. Like you
that
cannot,
is a much better way.
It could not have been better.
No.
I mean, that's the beauty of these films. Is I think one of the reasons that I'm always kind of passing the podcast as being a bit light on films is, I know how much it takes to get a film to screen. I know how, I know everything that goes into it's crazy. And so it's a disservice to just run a film off as rubbish, because maybe the script's good, but the acting's bad. Maybe the acting's good, but the script's terrible. Maybe both of those are bad, but the DP has done a really good job on the lighting and the cinematography. There's always going to be some redeeming qualities to films, but
go watch Mutant Chronicles. I dare you. I bloody dare you.
There are a lot of films that are awful.
Yeah. There's no redemption in that horror.
But
I'm still not forgiving the other James for that.
But that's the thing. In Lord of the Rings, there isn't anything there's nothing that's weak. From the casting to the adaptation to the script to the props to the costumes, the miniatures, the bigatures, everything is on point. And this is why I've said, this is why they make fun of me for saying it, but it is the greatest film ever made. And nothing will ever be made like it again, because they wouldn't ever go to those lengths to make it physical again. It will all be CGI and it'll all be green screen. And even if it's, what The Mandalorian now does with this amazing sort of, virtual wall they have, which looks brilliant, but it's just not the same. So this is the last great film to be made.
The last epic.
Yeah.
Of true, like, it's like when you go back and you watch things like Ben-Hur.
Exactly, right, yeah.
And you see that the lengths they went to, and it's like, yes, we built an entire Colosseum because that's what we needed.
Yeah.
And and I have to admit, it's like you watch most modern stuff now, and you can see it in the background.
I was going to just ask one last quick thing about so back to the Fellowship of the Rings. Have either of you got a favorite character, a standalone favorite character? Mine's Samwise, because I think he is the bravest of all of the hobbits, in my opinion.
Well, it probably should be Samwise, because a bit of trivia, I was actually named after Samwise. My mum,
were you?
Yeah, my mum really loved the book and was like, I can't name him anything else.
I want to see that it's Samwise on the
He's not Samwise, but it's not Samuel. It's just Sam.
It's just
Sam. My mum thought that was the only name from the book that she could possibly give somebody. And so I was named Sam after that. So it should be Sam. When I was a kid and watched it, it was Legolas, because I thought he was awesome. And now I've grown up into the person I have, it's Gimli, because I realised that my spirit animal is a dwarf. So, it's Gimli. He is the coolest guy.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's got to be Boromir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's the underdog. Like, again, even as a kid watching it, everyone loved Aragorn, but I felt like he had like main character energy when I was a kid. I always felt like, well, clearly Aragorn's supposed to be great at everything, but at least Boromir was trying. And even as an adult, you go back and you like, if you watch the other films, you see in Return of the King what Denethor was like. And you understand immediately, like you immediately cut back to what Boromir, the weight of the world on his shoulders because of his father. So you understand that his sacrifice at the end of Fellowship, when he dies protecting the hobbits, even though he knows neither of them have got the ring, they're not his duty, but he still did it because he said he was willing to prove in death that he was a good man in life, and sacrificing himself for the hobbits was how he proved it.
Yeah. I'll change my answer, Boromir.
And yes, I have a man crush on Sean Bean, so I don't care.
Oh, I think at this stage then, it's just, I don't even know why we're actually rating this film, because I know that there's probably going to be 10s all round, but let's see. 1 out of 10. Let's see what you guys think of this film.
Well, we'll start with Sam, as he's our guest.
Are we out of 10? Are we?
Well, we can do it out of 5 if you prefer. I don't care.
I mean, on my podcast we do out of 5 meatballs. But no, I'll do it out of 10. It's a 26 out of 10 from me. No, it's definitely a 10 out of 10. Like,
Yeah.
Jim from my podcast says, nothing can ever be a 5-star or a 10-star film because there's always something wrong with it. And, I'm sure there are little bits here or there, some CGI that isn't quite right, or, there's an extra that's looking the wrong way or picking his nose in the background of something, maybe.
Or there's a pickup truck that you can see in the back of a chase sequence because it's a long shot.
But if you're talking about like categories of film, this is a 5-star. This is a 10 out of 10 star film any day of the week. Whether you like this style of film or not, you have to just give it the respect of what it does. So yeah, 10.
Good.
Yeah, same here. It's just, as I say, being based on a well-written book is probably one of the greatest cornerstones for it as well, is the fact that its source material was so good.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't, like as you said, it couldn't be any better.
Mm.
The books are perfect. The film is perfect. I love it. Hollywood, leave it alone.
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the love of God, leave it alone.
And I'm going to be the Jim of this podcast, and I'm going to say a 9.5 because there is still always room for improvement. So I'm sorry, guys. Yeah.
This is what I have to put up with, Sam.
You really don't want to be the Jim of anything. Just FYI.
No, you're right. But no, I do agree with him because I have said it before on other podcasts as well, that I do also think that it's hard for me to say that something is perfectly perfect. So I have to go with my 9.5, but it is still way up there. It's not a 10, but it's nearly a 10.
It's as close as any film's going to get. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So don't get me wrong. I will continue to watch this film and I will love watching this film, but there will always be that niggly thing that irritates me or something. There'll be something that gets me. And so I'm just leaving that little bit of room for those little niggly bits that really annoy me. So there we have it.
They're called extras. We're not allowed to call them niggly little bits anymore.
Well, before we wrap up this episode, Sam, did you want to sort of recap and give us your social media if you've got it to hand?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Yep.
Jim did provide me with a long list of our social medias, but basically, if you go to any social media and search Cast a Roll Pod, you'll find us.
Yeah.
All one word. Keep an eye out because we will soon be on TikTok and YouTube Shorts with some new animations, and Instagram as well. And we'll be firing out an episode every other week for our usual podcast. So keep an eye out. Cast a Roll on all the socials. Thanks, guys. And if you're feeling really generous, we do have a Patreon.
Yeah.
So, go to Patreon.
And if I recall as well, you do actually have Buy You a Coffee as well, which is going to be updated to Buy You popcorn at some point as well, isn't it? So
yeah, I think that's still going. Yeah, if you want to buy that, well, basically we'll just take your money, however you want to give it to us, is what we're saying. So go ahead.
Swords aren't cheap.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Daddy needs Boromir's sword.
No, Daddy needs Boromir's horn.
Nice. That sounds really wrong.
Gemma needs his horn too.
Oh my.
Oh my. Well, in that case then, I think that we've been talking enough celluloid codswallop this week. Not easy for me to say. Celluloid codswallop, there we go. I have been Gemma.
I have been James.
And I've been Sam. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you ever so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. And that's a wrap.
This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.